I want to bring to the screen our first guest who absolutely has nothing to say about Kirk Franklin, but has a lot to say about what's going on with labor movements across the country. His name is Mike Elk.
Elk. I
Hey,
might not
how's it
have a
going?
lot to say about Kirk Franklin, but I got a lot to say about Kirk Flood. And Kirk Flood would have been in this kind of fight in Amazon in Alabama because that's what he did.
Hey, man, listen, Mike. Hey, thanks so much for joining.
Hey, you want to talk about Kirk Flood? We can talk about Kirk Flood for a couple of hours. I mean, be careful what you wish for here, you know?
Hey, man, I'm trying to introduce you. Mike Elk is a labor journalist and founder of Payday Report, which covers labor in news deserts. Deserts. Before founding Payday Report, Mike spent years covering union organizing in the South for The Guardian. Mike, first and foremost, hey, thanks so much for joining me. How are you this morning, man?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Hey, man, we're doing great. Listen, I want to talk to you specifically about. We're going to start in Alabama, Bessemer, Alabama. You've been covering that in great detail. Can you give us an update of where that process is and some of the political implications around it?
Well, it's a major moment. I mean, it's like a Selma type moment, in my opinion. I certainly think Terry Sewell sees it that way. And what's been happening there is they've been trying to organize a union there for about a year. The plant opened, not a plant, it's a warehouse. I keep calling it a plant, but it's a warehouse. It opened about a year ago. It's a majority black female workforce. And it's about 85% black, the entire plant. And they're going to have a union vote there. And what's happened is that Amazon has fought back in all these wild ways that you see union busters do all the time. They hold these incredibly manipulative meetings with people where they say, oh, you know, hey, you vote for a union, the plant might close. You might lose your job, buddy, but look, open door here. You can walk in the door any day with me, you know? And that's a lot of what's going on right now. They hold these meetings, and I've seen these meetings. I've been in these meetings where they say, you know, they bring in these guys. What's incredible, I think, about this story is that the majority of the management at that Amazon plant in Alabama is white. Majority. It's 85% black workforce. It's not a culturally competent management in any way, but they decided, oh, you know, if we're going to bust the union, we're going to bring in black union busters. We're going to bring in corporate lawyers from Morehouse to do this. And that's what they're doing.
That the divide and conquer tactic is a pretty standard move in union busting. And one of your recent reports, you published a piece called "Amazon Offers 2,000 Resignation Bonuses to Bust Union Drive in Alabama." Tell me about that particular technique that they're trying to use.
Well, let's think about it this way. There's a lot to unpack here, but imagine, you know, the job at Amazon for Birmingham isn't that bad of a job. You know, they call Birmingham the Pittsburgh of the South. I live in Pittsburgh. And when I went down there to Birmingham, I was like, wow, unions are a lot like us. I mean, you're Southern Appalachians. We're at the northern tip of Appalachia, and those folks down there, the starting wage there is about $16.20 an hour, with crappy HMO health insurance, but it's something, you know.
Right.
The average Amazon picker, this is someone who moves around, equipment all day in a warehouse. Average Amazon picker walks 12 miles a day.
Wow.
So if you're a young guy, particularly, you know, you're a young black guy right out of high school, you didn't go to college or anything like that, you can go out to Amazon and get a pretty flexible job, making about $16.20 an hour, and then overtime. So you can easily be working as a picker and make 40, 50K a year. That's not tough. And for a lot of folks, getting that kind of job, it changes their life, as you can imagine.
Right.
You know, the minimum wage in Birmingham is what, $7.25. The city of Birmingham has tried to pass an increased minimum wage, and then the state overrode it. And so, yeah, it's a very, very good job. And so what they go around to guys and they start saying things, and I've heard this a million times. What they say is, oh, if we get a union contract, you know, some people might do better, but you might do worse, because when we get a union contract, we start all over. It's BS. Because under federal labor law, if you unionize, you can't decrease someone's salary unless you can prove you did it for economic reasons.
Right.
So they pull this whole manipulative game and they say, hey, look, buddy, look, my door is always open. You know, give me another, come in, you talk to me anytime you want to talk to me. You know, like, I'll give you a raise. You bring in the union, though. Hey, look, we heard you. And I know Ann Feeney, my friend Ann Feeney, the folk singer, compared what management does in these situations to how manipulative men that are abusive to their wives say, hey, come back, give me another chance.
Yeah.
And that's what Amazon is pulling right now.
That's actually a great analogy, and we actually use that analog between politics and relationships on this show a lot. And so I think that is a perfect way to describe it. My question then would be, why do we even go through these games, Mike? Right? Like, because we know at the end of the day, people need to unionize. Generally speaking, without the propaganda from corporations, people want to unionize because they understand the value of it. But why does the federal government force, why don't we just have unions as a standard in this country versus all the games that have to be played, this song and dance, where you're pitting the people against corporations that have unlimited amounts of money to crush unions?
Well, I think, look, I'm a Bernie guy like you are. And I think Biden will change the game on this, in my opinion. I've never seen anything like it in my entire career. You're in these incredibly manipulative meetings where, you're a kid out of high school, you're overmatched against some corporate lawyer, and the corporate lawyer is saying like, oh, didn't you see this case of corruption in your union? And like, yeah, corruption does happen in the union, right? And they'll start saying this stuff. And now what folks are just saying to shut it down is just, Joe Biden said this meeting shouldn't happen. We're not going to get in for tit for tat here. We're not going to, because it's disinformation is what they're doing, right?
Right.
We're not going to get into tit for tat here. Joe Biden said this meeting shouldn't happen. Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
And that's a district there that voted 72% for Biden. That is his base.
Yeah.
Those are folks that just. So instead of being like, because what they so often do in union busting is they paint the people that are the union. Often they do a divide between the young and the old, right?
Right.
Particularly in a physically demanding workplace like that. They do a big divide between the young and the old. And so what's happening now is they'll always say, oh, well, the unions can be led by the troublemakers. The unions can be led by the people that are, not the good people here, right? You're a young person, you're working a job, you're making decent money. Not bad. You don't want to screw that up, and you don't know what to believe. And now, I think the really, really big thing that's the game changer here is that BLM, in terms of national BLM groups, have invested an incredible amount of money in organizing this place. There's a guy there. He's one of the founders of BLM in Birmingham, a guy named Eric Hall. We've been on the phone a lot. He's the chair of our revolution there. And they're running radio ads. And so they're able to come in the door and say, hey, because look, for somebody that doesn't know anything about unions, this could all be terribly confusing, don't you think?
Yeah.
They're able to come in the door and say, this is a racial justice struggle. What we're doing here. And Terry Sewell, she's a corporate Dem. She's a corporate Dem congresswoman there. I was talking to somebody on the phone the other day, and they said, Mike, didn't you really pick up on why Cori Bush and Jamal Bellman went down there with Terry Sewell? Which is that Terry Sewell's worried about getting primaried from the left. She's worried about it. And so she's from Selma, and they're taking this on. I think the administration is taking this on as a Selma moment. They might lose narrowly, but it will make the case for the PRO Act.
Right.
And Joe Biden, we can say a lot of criticisms of Joe Biden. We've had so many Southern Democrats as president. Joe Biden was the first president we've had ever, because FDR helped create unions. He was, JFK was from the Northeast, but he was a rich kid. But Biden was the first guy. He grew up in a steelworker coal mining town in Scranton. He grew up around unions all his life. And when I deal with the Biden people, they're not best on everything, but they understand unions, if that makes much sense.
No, that does. And
it's not like you got to walk in the door with them and be like, this is what a union is.
And that's a huge. I mean, even the statement that he put out in favor of union organizing. I mean, that was a big help. And I think it's important for us to engage in good faith with the Biden administration and give them their props when they do something that is good. But I want to ask you about one other thing before we get out of here. There is a language shift that's happening on the right, and they are starting to position themselves as if they are the party for and the ideology for working people. And specifically, I want to bring up Marco Rubio. There was a clip over the weekend of Marco Rubio making it seem as though he was coming down on the side of the organizers, the union organizers in Bessemer, Alabama. But he positioned it really in a strange way. I don't know if you saw the clip where
I saw it.
He attacked Amazon for their wokeness and their corporatized identity politics, right? It's a very unique position, but I think it's very strategic because at the same time, over the weekend, I saw someone from the left, and I won't mention their names because they're a small account, but for the first time, I saw someone from the quote unquote left attacking the PRO Act as a tool that is anti-worker because people unionizing, this is the argument, people who unionize actually get benefits that separate them from the working class. Now, this is convoluted on all sorts of levels, but when I did the math, man, there is on the right a concerted effort to try to relabel themselves as the working class party, right? And then on the left, you have a small faction that is trying to separate us from things that we know are good, which are unions. No matter how problematic some of them may have been, we know that we need unions. I just kind of wonder what you thought about that clip from Marco Rubio and all of these all the games that are being played to try to mess up the alignment.
Well, I'll say this. It was a brilliant political move by Marco Rubio if he wants to run for president in 2024, which is what he's talking about. There's so many layers to that. I was talking to a friend of mine, not quite a friend, but a union buster who lives in Florida. And here's the thing, 45% of union members are Republicans, right? So you have generations of folks who benefit from union contracts, particularly in Florida. You have like construction union retirees from Jersey that moved down there, right? So Marco Rubio, he knows that crowd, but this is what's really, really funny is I started, reading this op-ed and I started researching Rubio. In 1984, there was a massive hotel strike in Las Vegas. The Culinary Union called it. Marco Rubio's dad was a bartender. Marco Rubio claims, I don't know if it's true, but he claims this in his autobiography, that his dad crossed the picket line and that he called his dad a scab repeatedly. No, I mean, isn't that kind of, there's just so much to unpack here. I don't even know what to make of it all. Because Rubio knows that, look, you want to run in a primary, you can go up to the Northeast, you can talk that union talk. And I mean, here's the other thing. Look, the PRO Act just passed. There was one Democrat who voted against it, Henry Seliar. The leading Democrat, who I know, I played ball against him as a kid, was Connor Lamb. He led the fight to help bring it in. Connor Lamb is about as blue dog as you can get. But when I was out covering Connor's first campaign, when he won in that Trump plus 14 district, he'd go out to Western PA, he'd go out to those kind of coal miner types. Western PA, when you get into coal country, similar to Northern Alabama in many ways. When I went down there and they called it Pittsburgh the South, I was like, oh yeah, I get it, And what Connor did is he'd go out there and he'd say, the Republican running against me, he's for a right to work. And we would go out and we would tell this to like old union coal mine retirees, and they'd be like, he's for right to work, he's going to eliminate the minimum wage. I'm like, that's not technically what right to work means, but there's such messaging around it. And so when Connor Lamb, who attacks AOC, who goes after her all the time, is on the floor of the House fighting for the PRO Act, that tells you something about the popularity of it. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody, I mean, think about this. Bernie Sanders, Marco Rubio, and Joe Biden are united on one issue, which is organizing Amazon. From different places, but I'll take it. Won't you?
So, I mean, yeah, I'll take it. But my concern is the attempt for a realignment and the willingness of some of our comrades to buy into it, because like you said, it's a brilliant move that Marco Rubio did. I agree. It was brilliant, but it's brilliant in an insidious way because he's literally going to undermine unions. He literally is fighting on behalf of the top 1% of corporations. But if he can do it and couch it in populist language, exactly. And so
Josh Hawley's totally discredited at this point, right? I was talking with Santelli about this the other day. Josh Hawley's so discredited, and now Marco Rubio has that lane. It wouldn't surprise me, and I was talking with some of this later, it wouldn't surprise me if Mitt Romney comes out for the union drive there. There's a whole lane. Like, think about Marco Rubio, right? He's from Florida. He can go get those Florida votes in the primary, but he's got to go up to the Northeast. He's got to go around to the Conor Lamb voters. He knows how to talk to them, because I know the Conor Lamb voters, and they're kind of conservative Democrats who I don't agree with them, but they really like unions a lot. And so Marco Rubio knows that he knows this personally, because in this story in the LA Times I read, he talks about making protest signs during the strike in '84 and calling his dad a scab. And I'm like, when I read that, I was like, this is just wow. Marco Rubio claims in his autobiography he called his dad a scab once. I mean, they're just, he gets it on a deep personal level. It's cynical, but it's brilliant, if he wants to try to win that primary.
It's going to be fascinating to watch it play out. We're going to have to continue this conversation as we go. Mike Elk, man, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having us on.